What's going on there again, everybody? Brandon here. So it's time to get another painting going. This time around based off of a previous painting of mine. This painting here that I did, a study of a Christmas tree. If you're interested at all at that piece of work, it is on the YouTube channel. You can check out my process of that one. But based off of that work, I've got a collaboration going now with a seller called the Christmas Sage. I'm going to be selling some of my original pieces of art at some local craft shows, and I think there is a Santa's Workshop thing that's coming to Spartanburg here later in the year. And these are going to be just some small canvas Christmas related paintings. There are going to be some Christmas trees like the one you saw. There's going to be maybe some snowmen, maybe some other type stuff. Pretty small canvases, anything from a 5x7 and smaller. And so this particular video now, we're going to take a look at another Christmas tree painting on a small canvas this time, full walkthrough, real-time tutorial. So let's get moving. Alright, so here we have a pretty small canvas this time. This is a 5x7 that we're going to be doing another nighttime Christmas tree scene in the snow. And based off of the previous study of a Christmas tree that I did, I painted the entire canvas black with black gesso on that project. But now I know that I'm not actually going to do that on this one. What we're going to do is we're going to cover this canvas basically in a really dark blue to start with, to give us a good background for what will be the snow on the ground and in the sky. We'll lighten up the blue a little bit towards the horizon, and I'm going to paint the edges of the canvas as well with that kind of darker blue color. So we're going to go ahead and coat that canvas with that color. Not going to need a lot of colors for this particular project, really just going to need some blue, black, white, and green, and yellow, maybe some yellow ochre. We're going to use about an inch size brush to cover this with, so we're going to put that dark blue in, cover our edges, and let's get started with that. Alright, so I'm going to be using this about a 1-inch brush here that I'm going to be putting on this color with. Now this is acrylics that I'm using, and so we're going to create a little bit of a color fade here, but it's not going to be a drastic one, so it'll be pretty easy to pull off with these acrylics. Not too much of an issue. So I'm going to put this darker stuff here along the bottom and along the top, and then we will come in with just a little bit lighter blue here right below this. Let me keep my canvas from moving here. We're going to put in a little bit lighter blue right below this that we will fade up into this darker blue here to create a little bit of a sky glow in the distance. And then of course down here is going to be where we're going to be putting our snow in. So right now we're just putting this darker color in down here to have our background for snow. And then in the middle will be our distant tree line, so we're not really worried about what's going on there yet. Alright, that's pretty good coverage for the snow background. Now I'm going to lighten up our blue here. Basically just going to add some white into it. Now we're going to come in here with a little bit lighter blue and fade this up into our darker blue. Canvas keeps wanting to jump on me. These small canvases, I don't really have a great easel to keep these things in place, so it's just kind of propped up here at the moment. But that's a pretty good fade there. Maybe bring this dark down just a little bit into it there. Alright, I would say that now is a pretty good sky, pretty good background for the snow. Now, to lay in the distant tree line that's going to be in the middle here, I'm going to come into really, really dark blue now, almost black. Just take the end of the brush here now and tap it in to create some of this distant tree texture, and we will carry it up into the skyline glow here. And by the way, I'm painting around my camera here. You may have noticed I literally have my camera right in front of me, so some of this, the hand gets in the way a little bit. But anyway, tap this tree line in, make sure we get it up into the blue skyline that we have, and then just put the color in here along the bottom. Finish that up. And there we have a pretty easy distant tree line, not to worry about any kind of detail back there. That'll work. Now we are going to work a little bit on the snow here on the bottom. And all I'm really doing here is just lightening up the blue a little bit as I'm bringing it forward, using these horizontal brush strokes here just to create a little bit of a lay of the land. And again, just lightening this blue up as I come forward. It's good to have a little bit of areas of light and dark in here when I'm doing this, just to create a little bit of the idea that there's some hills back in there. It's not totally flat. And we'll bring this all the way to the front of the canvas here at the bottom. And now we have the makings anyway of what looks like some snow laying out there on the ground at night. Now the next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to come in the front and put a little bit of just some light purple color along the snow here. And this is basically going to be some color that is going to be reflecting off this snow in the front where the tree is sitting, and where the lights, the Christmas lights on the tree itself, are reflecting on the snow. So I'm going to put a little bit of a light purple in here, and then we'll have something to work with once we put the tree in and put the lights in. That will give us some reflection of lights along the bottom. And I'm going to lighten this purple up even more here, just a little. That way it's not all one value of purple in here anyway. Fade a little bit around to what'll be kind of the back corner of the tree on both sides. And again, we're just kind of putting something in here to get us moving forward here. This is not going to be anything specific here at this point. I think that'll do. Now for the tree itself here, I'm basically going to come in with some dark green and put in what really is just going to be the main silhouette here of the central part of the tree. So what would be, I guess, a trunk coming down, although you're not really going to see much of this trunk. This is just giving me an idea of the center point. And now I'm going to bring some branches out on either side here with this smaller angled brush, And I'm not going to come all the way out to the ends here with this particular brush because I'm going to put a little bit finer limb detail out on the ends with a slightly smaller brush than this. So this right here is almost just painting, I guess, about half the limb as it's coming out and giving me what is basically the meatier part of the middle of the tree that you're not going to really be able to see through that much. So we're just going to work our way up here, putting in a couple of different levels of basically branch background color here. And again, we're going to come back here in a second with a smaller brush and extend all of these out. And just a few indications here at the top. Now, I'm going to come back in here with a much smaller brush and extend the ends of all these areas. Now drag all these out a little bit here and create individual little limbs that are coming out on these edges. Gives it a little bit more detail, a little better overall look in my opinion. And obviously there's different kinds of trees out there that people make Christmas trees out of, so this is just one particular type of tree that has branches that come out like this with individual needles that hang off of them. Obviously you can make just about any shaped Christmas tree you want, so this is what I'm going with, more of a stereotypical looking triangular shaped tree. And really, as you get towards the middle in here, you're not going to be able to see through this tree much at all, so you can just kind of make a few lines here and there to indicate some branches coming down. But ultimately, at the end here, all of the limb texture in the middle of this tree, you're really only going to be able to see wherever we put highlights in of either the snow or the Christmas lights themselves. So it's just these edges of these limbs poking out to the side here that you can maybe see some individual things going on. So we'll put a few things out here on these ends, and here in the middle we just kind of blob the color in. It's not overly crucial. And really, when we get up into the part of this tree that is in front of that distant tree line up in here, you're really not going to be able to see much at all of these background limb colors, so it's really going to be just the highlights themselves up here that you're going to be able to make out here in front of this middle section here. You will be able to see some up here at the top, so we got a few branches coming in up here that you can see. And obviously there's tree limbs that are hanging off the back and coming off the front that are not easily as viewable off the back anyway, but you still get that background color that they're back there. Something to that effect anyway. And I'll carry this down here to where we meet the top of this distant tree line. And again, this middle section we're really just going to have to define out with our highlight colors. And I'll put a few indications of something in here, just for the sake of doing it, although it's not really that visible. Now all I've done here to this point when my camera battery got low is I put in a little bit of just basic red in a couple of spots right here along some limbs. Now this is just a medium kind of value of red. It's not dark red, it's not bright red, We're going to come back in with some brighter red in the middle of this, where a light is going to be shining, a red Christmas tree light is going to be shining. So this is kind of just basically a darker value of where the light will be hitting further out on some branches. So we're going to put some red in a couple of places where we want some red light, or where a red light is going to be anyway. And basically I'm just painting along maybe what are some individual tree limbs in there. Let's put one more right in here. So I'm just basically touching in what would be some red light reflecting off of some limbs in there. Now I'm going to do the same thing here with some yellow. And this is just basically a medium, again, a medium value kind of yellow. And we're essentially kind of working from the outside in to where a Christmas tree light bulb will be sitting. So this is going to be kind of the outer areas of where the yellow bulb light is reflecting off of these limbs. And then we'll come back in and brighten it up as we get towards the center of it. So we will put in a couple of places of some yellow where we're going to have a yellow light. And again, this is just like reflecting off some individual limbs. And let's put one more down here in the bottom corner. And we can refine these a little bit once we actually put our light bulbs in place, so to speak. And even when we put some snow on these branches, we'll probably need to come back and refine some of this a little bit. I'm also going to use here, this is, I don't know, kind of a light aqua or teal kind of blue color here that just seems to work nice as a color of a Christmas light here. So we'll put this around in a couple of places for our third light color. Now obviously you can use whatever colors you want. I mean, there's plenty of options. I'm just going to go with these three colors on this particular tree. Stick one up here in the top in the middle, and one more down in the middle here somewhere. All right, it looks pretty good to me. Now I'm going to brighten this up. Brighten up my red a little bit here. Again, working from the outside in. So as you get closer to the center of this area where the light bulb is going to be, everything is just going to be a little brighter. Make it look like it's glowing in here a little bit. So we're going to do it first with our red again. Basically, I'm just adding a little bit of some white in here on this red paint just to lighten everything up a little bit. And again, we're just trying to give the effect that there is a colored light bulb in here that's reflecting off some limbs and is glowing out of these areas. So we're just brightening it all up towards the center. And we'll come back in here and do the same thing on our yellow and on our kind of aqua blue color as well. A couple of places up here on this red on the top, and that'll be about it for the red. So now I'll move over and do the same thing here with the yellow. Lighten it up in the middle. That looks pretty good now for the yellow. And then lastly, I'll do the same thing again here with our aqua blue color here, lighten it up in the middle. Then we will come back in on all these and drop in a dot of like pure white right in the middle of them to be our visible light bulb. Alright, so now let's move into some of this blue shadowy snow color and put in the darker tone areas of the snow that's going to be hanging out on these branches. Now these lower branches down here will have the most snow kind of hanging out on the edges on them, kind of weighing them down a little bit. So we're going to put this is basically the same kind of blue color that we've got in the snow background. And I'm just going to touch it along the tops of limbs. We may need to come back in and lighten that up just a little bit. That's a little better. And I'll probably come back in a couple of times and adjust the values here and work on reflections from those Christmas light colors onto this snow. So this is just kind of getting us an idea of where our snow is going to be. I'm using my smaller brush now to come along these individual fingers. And just dropping this snow color on the tops of all the little tips that are poking out. So here in this middle, see, now we can basically create branches where we want them to be with this snow highlight that previously you couldn't really see in there because it's just all kind of dark. And you can decide how much snow you want to put on your branches if you're painting along here. Obviously you're the artist, it's up to you, so I'm just kind of randomly dropping some snow in here on what would be some branches. I don't want to cover up all of my dark areas obviously, so I'm just kind of dropping in some snow wherever. And then this area here where we've got our distant tree line back there will come out on these corners right in here and define out some of those limbs a little better that you previously couldn't see. Make this thing look actually more like a Christmas tree standing out here now that we can actually see where some of these limbs are in here. And I'm probably going to come back over some of this snow with a couple of different values of lighter snow highlight and some of this color from these light bulbs reflecting on them in the areas where it's closest to the light. So we still have a couple of adjustments to make on this, but this will get us headed in the right direction. That looks pretty good. I think now I'm going to come in here with some, touch a little bit of red along the areas where the red is reflecting off the snow. That really just adds to the overall range of the glow of our Christmas tree lights here. It extends the glow out, adding it further away from the central point. So basically I'm just going to touch some more of this color around the edges of where it would be hitting some of the snow. And then I'm going to come back in here and brighten up more of the snow itself around those areas, and then layer the color back on top of that. So we'll end up with about a 3 or 4 step layering process here, but in the end it will all look pretty good, I think, or at least I hope. So now this is just going to brighten up some of the snow in the areas that are closer to these tree lights. And I'm pretty much going to brighten up the snow around all of these lights, and then come back across the areas that I brightened the snow up with the color from the light itself. And again, it's just going to make it look like the glow of that light is extended out even a little further. And then you still want to leave the areas where the light is probably not hitting the snow so much to stay in that darker snow color, to make it look like it's a little bit more into the shadows. So I'm just trying to hit the edges where I think would be bouncing or reflecting light from these particular lights that are in the tree here. So kind of along these tips and these edges that are closest to the lights themselves. And then leaving the darker snow tones for the areas that probably would not be catching that light. And it doesn't have to be real specific, just touch these in here, something like that. Now we come back with our color again from the light, so we bring this yellow a little further out. Over here we're going to bring this red further out. Basically just dragging this red color out underneath the brighter snow that we just put on. And we just need to do the same here for our aqua color, extend it out onto some of these brighter snow areas. And again, this just ultimately in the end makes everything look like it's glowing with a little bit more intensity, and the reach of this color is just a little bit further off into the tree limbs. Now to put our Christmas light in here, all I'm really doing is just going to drop in a dot of white kind of right in the center of these. Basically where I think the light would be coming from, the actual bulb that's visible. And it really just takes a little bit of a glob of white paint right in the middle. One for our yellow light here, and that just about does it in terms of the Christmas lights themselves. Now one last thing I'm going to do here is I've gone back to my liner brush here, and I'm going to just touch in a few indications of some thin lines with this color around these bulbs. So in this case here I'm using this yellow, and all I'm doing is touching in around these yellow areas a few what would be individual limbs and branches that you can kind of see a little bit of the light from these bulbs reflecting on. So it's a couple of real fine edges of some limbs. Might not even be all that visible here on camera, but if you were looking at this closer in person, you would be able to see a little bit of this detail. And now I'm just going to bring the red in here to do the same with some red. This just kind of adds a little finishing touch, in my opinion, of a little more realism to the tree, where you can see a few limbs that are back in those dark areas that are reflecting a little bit of the light from these bulbs coming out. And you can definitely get carried away with this, I guess, but you just at some point have to decide, okay, that's enough. But I have a habit of always wanting to keep adding little details in here until I'm happy. So at some point here you just have to stop and say, okay, that's good. We gotta get a few limbs in here in our aqua color around these lights. And now here the last thing I'm going to do is bring some of this color here from these lights that are low to the ground and reflect it off this snow. So I'm going to take this yellow in here and get a little bit of yellow reflection off the snow here in front of this tree. And really all you got to do here is take this brush and start here close to the tree with it and just kind of scrub it into the canvas as you work away from it, and it'll start to thin out a little bit and fade off into this purple color that we put down previously. That will make it look like a little bit of reflection from that light shining onto that snow there. Basically something like that. And now I got to come over here to the right side and do the same thing with some kind kind of a pink red color here reflecting off of this snow on this side. I'm going to do the same thing. Just going to take this brush here and start scrubbing it in at the base of the tree, and then just kind of let it fade itself out as I work it out into this purple. And that's really about it. Well, I think I'm going to call that pretty much a finished product at this point. There's not really a whole lot left to do there. You can certainly get carried away with adding lots of little details and things, but at this point, again, creating these to be distributed at some local craft shows, I'm going to try to keep these at a reasonable enough detail, but I'm just going to throw a signature on this now and say this one's done, so I can repeat a few more of these and probably turn them out in 30 to 40 minutes time, so not have a ton amount of time invested in trying to get these things done. So I'm just going to drop a signature on this and say this is a finished piece. So hopefully if you painted along with this, you've got a product you're happy with, that you enjoyed. If you liked this one, give me a thumbs up. You can drop me a comment if you want. And again, give me a subscribe on the channel here. I'll have more stuff coming out if you want to get notifications of that and see some new paintings coming out in the future. Other than that, we're going to say now this is a finished product. So there you have it. Small 5x7 canvas Christmas tree at night in the snow with some colored lights. I'm pretty happy with the way this one turned out. So there you go. We will catch you guys next time.